So in today's lesson, I'm going to be showing you a great way to be able to solo in all 12 keys, and this will really help you master the guitar fretboard as well. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. So before we actually get into the guitar playing, and we're going to be showing some stuff on some diagrams on screen, I just want to show you something really quick here, which is that we're going to be using the circle of fifths in order to practice playing in all 12 keys. This is a great way to practice in a good order to go through all the different keys, rather than a lot of times guitar players, if they want to practice in another key, they think, oh, well, I already know the key of C or whatever key it happens to be you happen to be comfortable with, and I'm just going to move everything up a fret or everything down 2 frets. And we're always kind of seeing a key in relation to another key in terms of the shapes as guitar players. So practicing along the circle of fifths is going to help with that, because you're going to see that we're not going to be able to just cheat our way out of the keys by just moving shapes over. Okay, so those of you who might not have any experience with the circle of fifths, this is going to be a great way to introduce yourself to the ideas. And if you notice, if you go along the circle of fifths, there are different key signatures. I've talked about key signatures before. Basically, every time we move, let's say counterclockwise, we start with C at the top. We're going to move counterclockwise, in this case, in this video, along the circle of fifths. And every single time, actually, you change keys, only one note is actually going to change in order to get to that key. So that's going to be sort of the bulk of what we're going to be talking about, is how we can find another key by actually finding the note that needs to change, rather than just going ahead and moving shapes around, which can be very useful as well, not discounting that, but this is going to help you tremendously. What we're going to be doing is going through all of the 12 different major keys, and we're going to be going counterclockwise along the circle of fifths. Sometimes, by the way, people call it the circle of fourths, because actually if you go in counterclockwise, like C, the next one's F, C up to F is actually a fourth, but C down to F is a fifth. So fourths and fifths are kind of a mirror image of each other in that way. So with that being said, some of you may recognize, if you saw my last week's video, we were talking about the different positions of the major scale. So this is going to be one of the positions written down here, and this is going to be in the key of C major. So if you know your notes in the key of C major, first of all, you should know them on every single string. I've made videos about this before. You should be working on that before you get to this if you haven't worked on that. We're going to figure out, how do we get to F? So if you've watched any of my other videos before, or you may have taken the Jamsville GPS Fretboard Fundamentals course, we talk extensively about key signatures and how to figure out what notes are in a key by using the key signature. And it's a very important thing. We're not going to get too into depth. We're just going to go through what they actually are. We're not going to go over every single detail about figuring out what keys are in, or what notes are in a given key. But I'll just tell you right now that if we go on the left, okay, we go counterclockwise on the circle of fifths, we're going to be adding one flat note every single time. So the order of flats, by the way, for all the flat keys is B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, C flat, and F, actually, flat, believe it or not. And the order of sharps, when we start getting to sharp keys, is the opposite. So let's say if I know that order of flats, and I know that the key has 2 flats in it, I know, okay, the order of flats is B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, C flat, and F flat. If it has 2 flats, I just take the first 2. So I can just know, actually, if you see on that circle of fifths, it tells you how many flats or how many sharps are in the key. So if I know how many flats or sharps there are, and I know the order of sharps or the order of flats, I can easily figure out what flats those are, because it doesn't do us any good to know that there's one flat if I don't know which one it is, right? So we can actually get to F major very, very easily here by adding one flat. So the first flat we're going to add is actually going to be B flat. So I'm going to take all of the B's here in this pattern, and I'm going to move them to B flat. So this one I'm actually not going to move over here. It could if I wanted to. I'm going to go ahead and move it over here, change string. So now all of a sudden, all I did was that, and now I am playing in the key of F instead. And if I'm playing a chord progression in the key of F, that's going to be sort of the full major scale that I'm going to use. So we're going to rinse and repeat this process. And then what we're going to do is we're going to solo over a track that actually is going to go through all 12 keys. And we're going to see if we can actually go ahead and get through that and basically solo in all 12 keys, all in very, very quick succession. This is a fantastic way to practice. So we went from the key of C to the key of F, and now we're going to continue rolling counterclockwise on that circle of fifths. So I hope you're paying attention to that in the lower left-hand corner. So B flat is going to be the next key. So we're going to take one note, and it's going to be E flat. So we're going to take all of our E's and we're going to make them flat. By the way, if you're familiar actually with counting and labeling the notes and scales, so now we're in the key of F, of course. So F is the new one. So F is 1, G is 2, A is 3, B flat is 4, C is 5, D is 6, E is 7, and F is the root again. But now we're going to take E and we're going to lower it to E flat. So if you notice, actually, E is the 7th. And by the way, there would be actually an E here. We're going to go ahead and lower that one as well to E flat. Now, all of a sudden, we have all the notes there in the key of B flat major. Now, I want to just point out that actually every single time we change keys along the circle of fifths and we go and add one more flat and keep going counterclockwise, there's a very easy shortcut that we can remember actually, which is that if we take the 7th note in the key, that's the one we're going to lower a half step to get to the next key. So now we're in the key of B flat. Okay, let's go ahead and play through this position really quick. And by the way, you notice all of a sudden we've already done 3 of the positions of the major scale, but we're staying in one position. So we're going to be just doing this in one position for this video. However, you should go on your own accord and do it on all positions. So like we're practicing all 12 keys in one position at a time, but we want to be able to do that in all positions as well. Right now, we're generally the 7th to the 11th fret in that range at the moment. So now if I play through this, that is our whole entire position there of B flat major, but we're going to repeat that exact same thing when we go over another key to the key that has 3 flats, E flat major. So look, now B flat is the 1, C is the 2, D is the 3, E flat's the 4, F is the 5, G is the 6, and A is the 7th. Well, guess what? What do you know? Like I said before, when we go to the key of E flat, we are going to add an A flat. We're going to turn all the A's into A flat. So again, the 7th note of the key moves down and it gets us into the next key. So all of a sudden now, check that out. We now have the key of E flat major. So it's very, very easy actually. So you just need to be kind of familiar with your key signatures. And by the way, that really complements I know a lot of you know the formula for constructing a major scale: whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. But the key signature strategy really helps because then you don't even have to necessarily think of all that. You just know what the notes are in the key. Like I just know E flat, boom, has B flat, E flat, and A flat in it, okay? So when I start seeing in a piece of music, like a whole bunch of B flats, E flats, and A flats popping up, my alarm bells in my head are going, oh, that's probably in the key of E flat, if I had to guess. So now E flat would be the new root, And then, so we have E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, C. D is the 7th. Well, guess what? The next key that has 4 flats is going to be A flat. And wouldn't you know, what's the note that we have to add to get to A flat? It's going to be D flat. Okay, so now we just changed everything to D flat, all the D's to D flat, and now, bing, bang, boom, we have a key of A flat major. And of course, by the way, please don't start telling me that I'm playing a mode, okay? Yes, I know if I'm playing a mode, I'm playing C Phrygian or whatever it is there. It's only C Phrygian if there's a C in the bass, okay? So like I'll show you right now, actually. Let's go ahead and play really quick. We're gonna play in the key of A flat. We're gonna just take the little segment of this backing track and play in the key of A flat. It doesn't really sound like C Phrygian when you play it over an A flat major chord, okay? I've talked about this before, but just in case some of you bring it up, okay? All right, so now let's go ahead and we'll continue actually playing each of these over the chord as well too, because I think that definitely helps so you can actually hear what's going on. And you're gonna see it sounds really cool actually when we start changing keys really quickly, and it just seems like this cycle that never ends. So now we're gonna go from the key of A flat to the key of D flat, which has 5 flats, and guess what? G is the 7th note in the key. We're gonna lower all our G's to G flat. And what do you know? There we go. Now we have the key of D flat major. And if you notice, actually, by the way, it's very similar to the C major scale that we started with, actually. It's the same exact pattern, just now finally we went up a half step from that C major pattern we started with. So we've actually at this point gone through all 5 positions of the major scale. Now they're just going to be maybe offset by a fret or two to get some of those close keys like to C major, like D flat, and then also B major, etc., etc. So with that being said, D flat could also be called C sharp, which would be all 7 sharps. This is where redundancies start to come in when it comes to naming stuff in music, and it's kind of annoying, but it's just the reality of it. So now this is our first key that actually has 2 names if you notice looking there. So D flat would have 5 flats, or you could call this a key of C sharp, which then you start giving things dumb names. Like you start calling this C sharp, D sharp, you start calling F E sharp, and then you also call C, you call that B sharp, right? We don't want to really deal with those. So usually what you do is you just pick whichever one has the least accidentals. If you look later on, we're going to get to the key of B major, and the key of B major can also technically be called C flat. Again, no one actually calls it C flat. They're just going to use the name B instead, okay? So let's hear what that sounds like. Actually, we're just going to run that a little bit over the B flat backing track. Okay, so now we're going to have to go to the key of F sharp / G flat. Okay, so all the way down here on the bottom of the circle of fifths. By the way, this is actually the technically most distant possible key from the key of C major. So it's a tritone away. So at this point, you got to start transitioning your thinking. Either one of them is just as annoying. Thinking of G flat or F sharp. This is one thing I've talked about. You'll see right now. So let's call it G flat for a second. Okay, so we're going to actually have to lower all of our C's to C flat to get to the key of G flat, which is quite annoying. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and actually just get rid of this C here because that's going to start making us stretch kind of out of position. And then we're going to be left with this, which if you notice, that is the exact same scale pattern that we're using before for the key of F. But now it's up a half step. Okay, so also there, that C needs to go down. So now there's the conundrum when it comes to this particular key of G flat or F sharp, okay? So if in the key of G flat, we could call it C flat. We have the C flat in there. Every note is flat except for F, actually. But if we started calling it the key of F sharp major instead, so both of them have 6 flats or 6 sharps. 6 of anything is going to be basically the same key. 6 flats is G flat, 6 sharps is F sharp. They're the same key, just 2 different ways of naming them, okay? So actually, F sharp would have, instead of a C flat, we would have a B. Okay, that's better. But now instead of this F, we'd actually end up having to call this E sharp because we don't want to repeat letters when we're naming the notes in a scale. That's one thing. You don't have to overthink it. Obviously, when you're playing a solo, we're not worried about that kind of stuff. But just conceptually, this right here, actually, we don't like that because there's a B flat and a B in the same scale. It's like, wait, there's no C of any kind. And sometimes that can be a little bit confusing. So that would be the only reason why we'd use these kind of dumb sounding things like C flat or E sharp is just for the sake of keeping all the letters in the key, basically. So with that being said, let's just move on from here. We're going to play now the key of B major. So we're not going to call it C flat. We're going to call it B major. And guess what? If we take all the Fs, which are the 7th note in this key of G flat, we are going to lower them to E, and we're going to get the key of B major. So let's go ahead and rename all of these accidentals to sharps instead, because the key of B major has 5 sharps in it. Okay, so now we've renamed all of the accidentals. So we have, starting from B, we have B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, and B. So now we're going to start moving to the key of E. Let's try to get through these a little bit faster. So we're going to move to the key of E. Remember I said take the 7th note in the key and lower it a half step. So now A sharp is going to come down to A. This A sharp is also going to come down to A. And now all of a sudden we have a position of the key of E major. We're almost through all the keys. So now we have this. And if you notice, by the way, that's the exact same position. Actually, we can go ahead and add this E there now. That's the exact same position that we used of E flat before, but it is up a half step from where it was. So now let's just kind of blow through the last 3 keys, A, D, and G. Notice we're now around the 3 o'clock position on the circle of fifths. We have been going counterclockwise the whole time. So the key of A, we're going to take all the Ds, we're going to lower them, we're going to take all the D sharps and lower them to D natural, and that's going to give us the key of A. Again, same exact thing before, same exact pattern that was the key of A flat before. Now it's just moved up a half step and it's the key of A. Now we got to think A is the new root, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. So G sharp's the 7th. Now we want to go to the key of D. Guess what? We're going to lower all of our G sharps down to G. So that G sharp goes down to G. This G sharp goes down to G. Now we're in the key of D, which is the exact same actually pattern as the key of D flat was before, and the same pattern that the key of C was before. And then finally, we're going to come to the key of G, and guess what? We're going to take the 7th note in this key, and we're going to move it down a half step. So we're going to take the C sharp, move it to C. We're going to take this C sharp, move it to C, and we're just going to take this C sharp and get rid of it. So we don't want any 5-fret stretches with these particular major scale shapes. So now all of a sudden we have the key of G. We only have 1 sharp left over. So we're going to finally make our way all the way back where we started to the key of C by lowering all the Fs, or all the F sharps to F. So this happens, and then this happens, and then bing, bang, boom, we just actually got back to the key of C. Now, it just so happens that we kind of actually ended up in the next position over of C major. Okay, so you can actually continue this and continue this and continue this, go around the circle of fifths over and over. But let's go ahead and instead of shifting positions, let's just kind of go back to where we started with the exact same C major position that was over there. So you can see it's about learning this process, guys. This is the way that I learned how to really play in all 12 keys, is by actually understanding the notes that are in each key and then actually practicing them in one position. Because when you practice playing all the keys in one position, you're going to end up practicing every single one of your positions of the major scale, and you start seeing the same patterns popping up over and over again. And if you do it like this with actually knowing the names of the notes that are in the actual position, trust me, you're gonna remember them way, way, way better than if all you're doing is just trying to memorize a shape and you're trying to avoid learning the actual notes. So now with that being said, I'm going to demonstrate soloing over this little track I made on Logic, where we're going to go around that whole entire thing, but in pretty real time. So it's going to be 2 bars on each chord, and then we change keys and see if you can follow along with what's going on. And I'm just going to be kind of running the scale. Now I'm going to be trying to play any amazing solo. My whole goal is simply just to get through every key and be pretty comfortable and solid with it. And that's it. I just got through all of the keys. So if you practice doing this exact same process that we just went through, I know that at first it's kind of annoying, but then you start to remember the order of the circle of fifths, and you start to remember exactly what notes are in each key and which note change and when they're supposed to change. You're going to get super duper good at playing in every single key super duper quickly. So if you want to learn how to master the guitar fretboard so you can play in all keys all over the entire guitar neck, where I show you exactly how to master key signatures and much, much more, all of the triads that are in every key, which you need to be able to nail solos over all the chord progressions you play and not just know the actual major scale that you need to play, and much, much more, many more ways of approaching each key that are going to help you solidify even more your ability to solo, then make sure you head on over to Jamsville.com right now and pick up the Jamsville GPS Fretboard Fundamentals course. Also, make sure you head on over to the Jamsville merch store and get yourself a Jamsville t-shirt just like this one. It really helps support the channel, and these freaking t-shirts look awesome. Wear them all the time, wear them out and about, going to the restaurant, going to the store, hanging out in my house, making these videos. They fit really well and they're super comfortable. Also, last thing, make sure you check out my new song. It's called My Divine. That's what you're listening to in the background. You can look me up on Spotify. My name is Adam Paul, or you click the link in the description below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. And until next time, listen, learn, and jam.